object, and it would have to have one of those three pieces in it. And then I tried to relate the pieces and do the surface on the sculpture to relate to the pieces of drawing.
Thank you.
Part of what I find interesting is this relationship between the inside and the outside.
Yeah.
So the paper, draws all these elements of the inside. You see the spine, you see the lungs, these kind of diagrams of the inside, and yet the figure, you see the figure from the outside.
Yeah.
And yet that internal environment is larger than the figure. So there's this kind of inversion of the external is small and the internal is the big context. And I think that probably speaks of soulfulness somehow, about somehow what's the inner life somehow is this
The paper is
bigger context.
that's alright, you can know it.
Yeah.
Like this.
Yeah.
The figure, the figure is heavy.
Well, I started by not having a figure in there. I was starting with the paper, I was excited about it, but I think the figure really adds a huge element to it.
Yeah.
And I think that Phil, that's part of it. I think that was very good, very perceptive.
I think that runs through the other ones too.
Yeah, okay. So there were 15 originally of these. They were first installed at David K. Gallery, and I don't know if any of you know that gallery, but it's Queen and Dovercourt in Toronto, and he happens to have a room in the back that is very contained. It's just a door, and there's no windows, and it's a box or a rectangle. And it worked perfectly because it could fill up the whole space, and you could walk through them and be sort of in amongst them. And they were all around, which I wish they could have stayed like that.
And some people here will have seen it at Plain Glass.
Right, at the Clay Glass.
You could jump around.
Yeah, that's right, the Clay Glass, they were there too. So I don't have any more of these. They ended up being popular. So at least we thought this grouping worked. But I should say, this was another attempt of mine to try to get the clay to be up in the air and to be springy. And it started, this was kind of interesting. I was in one of those low points where, I thought some of you who are creative must know about those. And I saw a picture in the New Yorker magazine of a child up in the air, like they had caught the picture of a child jumping up in the air. I was so intrigued by it. I thought, I wonder if I could do that in clay and try to show that springiness. And so that was the impetus for the piece. It went through many evolutions. And one thing that would be interesting to you is these were, it's a 6-piece mold. They were 6-piece molds. But as you can see, all the parts are different. And so what happened is, I didn't expect it to be that way. I expected it to sort of be like this, where...
I'd hate to see that little figure hit the floor. She has decided.
Nobody here to play with is part of the problem. So I made this sculpture. When you make a mold, you make a sculpture, and then you make the mold around the sculpture, and then you press. I press the parts into the different parts of the mold, and I made my first piece, and I couldn't believe it. I hated it. Absolutely hated it. And I thought, I can't believe it. I thought it was just what I wanted, and it was terrible. So then I didn't want to make all those parts for the mold again. So I started altering within the mold. So I press a piece and then try to change them. So you can see the arms are different, and some of these, the legs are different, different gestures within it. And so really it starts from the mold, but then they were very altered. And then they were altered with the glazes. and the stains. So that they ended up changing a lot. So
These lines are a motif that you use a lot. They recur
in other
in
pieces,
some of the heads.
yeah, that was the first time I did it, and actually, do you know contour lines in drawing? Contour lines, and they create volume. Well, that's where it came from. I thought, well, how do I get more movement into these sculptures? I wanted them to be jumping and whirling. And so I decided I would put the contour lines on, which was another complexity, because if it's a six-piece mold, you want the spontaneity of the lines to go all the way around, but you've got all these parts that have to be attached, and then they don't look very good, and then so on, so on. Are there any questions about this work? Okay, so this is my most recent work about face. Well, okay, I can. Yeah, lots of people are kind of eager about this, so I'll start with these, even though these were the end. So this is called Ra, R-A, like the sun god. And this comes from a photograph that I took of inside the mold of those. So I took a picture just inside, so it's the negative space. So this is the negative space of those heads, if you can visualize. And when you look at, was it Evan Penny?
Yes.
Evan Penny, maybe you've seen his big bronze piece that's
At the
outside
McDonald Street Arts Center in Guelph.
in Guelph.
So as you're driving by, there's that big metal head,
Yeah.
and it's actually faced into the grass. So what you actually see is the empty volume inside the head. And yet, as you drive by, you'd swear that it's the other way around and actually turning to watch you.
I mean, it's not an original idea, and there are other people that have done that too, but I just took it. I wasn't really thinking of making this work, but I just took the picture because I thought it was kind of interesting. And then when I saw it on the computer, and I thought, wow, that is so interesting, so eerie. It really changes that, and I thought it would really relate it very well. So there were 5 of these in the original show, and I think there's something in that face that's so different than that, yet it connects. But that's what it is. So it is just a simple photo that I took of the inside of the mold, and then I decided I wanted to see if I could do a print of it. And I don't have the equipment really to etch or anything in my studio. And a friend of mine said, well, I know a master printer. Maybe they could print this for you. So I went to a master printer and I showed them the picture. I said, do you think we could make an etching of this? And we tried, and we couldn't do it. We sent it out to be etched, and it reversed itself. It just didn't work. And I thought it'd be really interesting. So I thought, we tried a lot of different things, and then I thought, well, I'm going to make a G-play. So this is a computer printout of that image. I altered it slightly just in Photoshop, but basically it's just a computer image, and then it was just on a flat piece of paper, and I folded the paper because I wanted it to have some kind of sculptural content. Plus, I really like the idea of the rays and with the face and the feeling of the face. So that's, I wanted it to also be sculptural. So I thought it was a lot stronger, sort of a bit like the figures with the flat. I wanted it to be stronger.
You must have been surprised with the result in the end.
Yeah, I was so pleased with how, and then it's out from the wall. It's got a metal thing that sticks at 2 inches out so that it just floats there and it kind of hovers. So then this body of work comes from another mold, and it's not the same mold as that. As you can see, it's got its eyes open, but it was a mold. So I was struggling with this state of grace, and I thought, okay, I'm just going to do a whole other series of molds for this, and I'm going to combine them, and I'm going to make a face with the eyes open. So I made the face, and it didn't work with that piece. So, but it did work with this piece. So that's what I used as another mold that came after that state of grace, and for this body. And this is really about texture and about playing with texture and what texture will say about the face and the emotion of the face through that texture. And I mean, basically, that's what it is. And I think if you approach each one, they start to feed you in different ways when you look at them up close, as opposed to, I like them this way, but also I really like them as individual ones. I don't know if and that's basically, if there's any questions about that, but